The History of the Philippines, Part 3. Let's fast forward to 1860, 1870 or thereabouts. At this time, the country was in a curious position. They had become devout believers in Christ, while they increasingly despised the church's principal agents, who are the friars. In 1858, a British visitor was entertained at a dinner which would have satisfied a Parisian gourmand. But meanwhile, he noticed the local Spanish newspapers were more preoccupied with the lives of the saints than the stirring events of the political world. The church was growing divided between its mostly Spanish clergy and then the local priests and their flocks. The government made very little effort to extend primary education with its own schools in addition to the clerical schools, and was focused far too much on teaching Christianity. The friars tended to ignore government demands that they teach Spanish, fearing that it would give access to new or other often secular ideas. In 1870, of 792 parishes, 611 were administered by the orders of the Dominican and the Franciscans, while the other few were represented by secular priests, most of whom were Filipinos. A confrontation then seemed almost predestined. Political swings in Madrid exacerbated issues, as a liberal governor was replaced by a conservative. The first of many uprisings, a minor uprising in a Cavite shipyard, was used by the government, egged on by friars, to accuse three outspoken local priests, Fathers Burgos, Gomez and Samero. These were the first lads to be accused of treason and executed. The deaths of the three priests were a landmark. Burgos, the son of a Spanish officer and a local mestiza, was a highly educated man, as were Gomez and Samero. The episode fueled the wrath of an upcoming generation of prospering new class mestizos. So a mestizo is like a half caste, or what we'd know as a half caste. At this time it would have been a local, what the Spanish called an endizo, and then a Creole, who's a local born Spanish person. There would have been a lot of mixed blood around this time, right? So many of these mestizos were educated in Spain, and then they returned and became part of the elite. This elite class became known as the Ilustrados. They demanded an ending of the friars' role in government. They demanded a replacement of local priests for more mass education and the curtailment of foreign, or often notably Chinese, power. They also wanted a fairer tax system because the Spanish didn't even pay tax. So, gathering momentum in and around 1880, the newspapers in Spain, the La Solidaridad, published a fortnightly newspaper discussing the political matters of the Philippines. The most famous of the Ilustrados is one Jose Rizal. Rizal, a name he adopted, was fluent in several languages. He was also a medical doctor and a writer, whose first novel, Nari Me Tangere, was published in 1887, and it was a searing attack on the regime in Manila. After a period of time exiled in Hong Kong, Rizal returned to Manila. He formed what is known as La Liga Filipina, a political revolutionist party which sought to promote reform and national identity. In 1891, he published his second book, El Filibusterismo, The Submersive, which was an even more inflammatory attack. He was arrested sometime after publication and exiled again to the Dapitan, which is a part of northern Mindanao. During the 4 years of exile he spent there, Spanish nationalists clung desperately to the largest remaining piece of their once mighty empire. The friars held viciously to their remaining lands, as they had 12,000 hectares of Rizal's home district, Calamba. During Rizal's exile, a more radical group of its members formed a secret society dedicated to independence and a republic. These were known as the Katipunan. The Katipunan conducted clandestine undercover activities, recruiting many from Manila's middle classes, and they largely went unseen by the authorities until 1896, at which time it was headed by one Andres Bonifacio. Once discovered, the Katipunan declared revolution on the 23rd of August 1896. However, many Katipuneros were quickly arrested and executed. Rizal had returned at this stage, but had up until that point rejected an approach from the Katipunan to join the revolution. He preferred a peaceful struggle for freedom. He even volunteered to serve as a doctor in the Spanish forces, fighting revolutionaries in Cuba. While he was en route to Cuba to fight against the revolutionaries, he was arrested. He was returned to Manila, and after a brief trial for rebellion, he was executed on the 13th of December 1896 by firing squad. He was killed in what is now one of Manila's popular parks, the Rizal Park. After Rizal's execution, a man by the name of Bonifacio, together with a man by the name of Aguinaldo, became the head of the Capitan. They were unable to mobilize sufficient forces, and no notable revolution occurred. There has been years of debate among historians about the relative roles of the ilustrados and what part the more traditional peasant revolt had in the nationalist movement. It seemed a form of rural populism was mixed with folk Christianity in the 19th century, which manifested in a strange mix of revolutionists, some who had been educated in Spain and could speak multiple languages and who lived relatively good lives. These revolutionists fought alongside the peasant folk. Whatever makeup the revolution movements had up until the close of the 19th century, it is notable that the radical ideas of Andres and Bonifacio and the Catamontero captain Aguinaldo did not culminate in a sufficiently successful revolution. Meanwhile, any such anti-colonial ideas took a back seat as the First World War came to the forefront. At this stage, the Qing dynasty was overthrown in China, but on the 15th of February 1898, there was a chain of events which tragically changed the world, and the Philippines more than most.